Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you at another series of podcast EUEA-Dialogues in the series Conversations That Matter. My name is Olena Rybak. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of European-Ukrainian Energy Agency. Today, my guest is Andree Böhling, the energy expert for Greenpeace. I'm very pleased to welcome you, Andree. Hi.
Hi.
And the topic of our today's conversation is From Chernobyl to Reconstruction, Greenpeace in Ukraine. So, Andree, very, very pleased to finally welcome you. It took us a little bit of time, and I would like to start by asking you, Greenpeace is widely, globally, I would say, known for activism and strong positions in the environmental issues, especially energy sector. But how would you describe what Greenpeace is actually doing, maybe except for what we already know from the headlines, so to say?
Yeah, I think the most important part, what people know outside of the organization, is about actions, iconic actions, courageous actions of activists who want to stop environmental crime, for instance. But in the last decades of Greenpeace campaigns, we of course developed further. So we have a lot of expertise. We are experts and support political conversations, decisions. We have we are also like mentors of volunteers, of maybe communities, of other actors in the environment movement, or of those who support the same values as we do. Yeah, and we are part of civil society and join civil protests, organize them with other partners. And we are also in the last decades became more international in that way that we collaborate between countries.
And what are geographically your main focus areas? Is this European Union, globally? You have any priority regions?
Yes, so the global, let's say, Greenpeace strategy follows a bit the conflicts, the threats, the global crisis on climate change, the threats of wars, the threats of environmental destruction of the seas, oceans, forests, and so on. And there, of course, we also look at the most relevant countries and, of course, try to positively influence them here. If Europe definitely is important here, but also, of course, on other continents, other countries, Brazil, the US, and so on. So there is maybe politically there are the most efforts maybe done.
And what about Ukraine? How did we make it to your focus area? What's the story there?
Yeah, I think Ukraine as a really important part of Europe, in general, is seen relevant for our European results, let's say, for European future. But for Greenpeace as well, Ukraine is with a actually nuclear disaster in Chornobyl, 1986, so 40 years ago. This catastrophe is really linked to also our history very closely because we were working since decades on nuclear safety, and Chernobyl showed the negative impacts and the risks of this technology, and still does until today. And so the first thing after the full-scale invasion by the Russians in 2022, and how our project started, was a mission by colleagues on nuclear safety to monitor the impacts of the Russian occupation of the Chornobyl nuclear power plant and the region and the nuclear risks that are connected to that. And that was a starting point,
What else are you doing currently? So to 2022, there was a break between 1986 and 2022. Were you active then? And what are you exactly doing now? Are you doing anything on reconstruction? What are your core activities?
The first works started after the nuclear disaster in end of the 80s, also beginning 90s. Greenpeace opened even a small office here in Ukraine that time. But after years, it was not that successful to survive, and they closed it again. But we still worked here in Ukraine on energy policy, on nuclear safety for decades. And then with the Russian aggression already before 2014, and then the full-scale invasion in 2022, so Ukraine became again more spotlight to the organization as well as the whole public, of course, in Europe. And then we started the works on monitoring nuclear safety for people who live around Chornobyl, who live around Zaporizhzhia. And the organization also began to discuss what else we could do here. And then the ideas about greener solution on reconstruction came up, and also, of course, the use of renewable energies in this context came up, so that we created a project in 2023 for 3 years to work on green reconstruction concepts, to support nuclear safety for people here, and to support the country in general.
No, thank you for that. But if we look at this last 4 years or 3, between 22-23, you started and reopened the office. Are there any two, 3 initiatives or the projects, like highlights, that you are specifically proud of that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, it's always hard to select, but
not to offend anyone, of course. I'm sure they're all marvelous, but
there may be some where I was more involved, and there are some where I see more political impact already. So the political impact I saw with our projects, investigations around the Russian shadow fleet, which led actually to political action on EU level, sanctions and investigations against these shadow fleet. The other thing is our work around Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant, which is in hostage of Russians still, and they try to restart this, which could have huge risks for people who live there. So our colleagues also investigated, monitored the situation, and found evidence about Russian restart initiatives that led to interventions publicly, also by International Atomic Agency. So I'm very proud about this influence we had there to support the country. Personally, I was involved in projects on this, I would say, solution side. So we initiated one project which supports hospitals in a really difficult energy crisis. So critical infrastructure, medical aid needs reliant energy supply. And so we initiated this project around solar with donations from Germany and other European countries. Started with older recycled solar panels and brought them to hospitals here. And then now expanded the approach with a competition where more than 100 cluster hospitals applied for support, and also are interested to install the panels and bring some own efforts here. So meanwhile, after 1 year, we have already delivered to 20 hospitals in Ukraine really huge panels and battery systems, which are needed right now. battery-connected solar panels that help to supply these hospitals in a very difficult situation. So that is, I think, really concrete work to support this country in a really difficult time, in a difficult winters. Yeah, and then there was, of course, this project in the city of Trostanets, which is about looking into the heating sector, which is not always in the focus of also international aid, and which is about private multifamily buildings, which is also an area which is not really supported highly on international level. And I think this project is connected to so much spirit, we see of the people in Trostanets, of the mayor, and of all involved in this project.
Can you tell us a little bit more? What did this solution imply? What exactly did you do?
Yes, so this initiative started with conversation, where also IC was involved, as you know.
Yes.
And the city developed a master plan to phase out fossil gas in their city. So as part also of reconstructions after the occupation, the Russian occupation. And we met the mayor on an info tour in Vienna and saw his passion for the same values. So energy transition, climate protection, energy independence from Russia, but also from, in general, from fossil fuels. So we developed this project to support his city on the way here, which is, of course, a longer transition to become fossil free. And we started then with a multi-family building of 60 apartments, which was destructed by Russian aggression and which was rebuilt. And it should be, after rebuilding and efficiency measures, reconnected to fossil gas, which for all of us was a wrong thing to do and a false message. So we initiated this project as a pilot and demonstration project for all Ukraine to show decision makers, but also public, that it's possible to use, even in such big buildings, even in the city of Trostanets, which is 30 kilometers away from Russian border, in a difficult area, to show a project which gives hope. You can use renewable energy and heat pumps and solar and geothermal energy to supply such a big building, and that's a very strong message, I think, and so I'm really proud of this project.
Thank you. No, it was cool. We also, of course, followed it with great detail. May I ask, so Greenpeace is an NGO, right? How are you normally funding your activities? Do you have bigger donors, or is this state financing or project financing, like also activities in Ukraine? How is this set up?
Yeah, it's a bit different in the Greenpeace world, I would say, But mainly we are, the main thing is that we are independent of public money from governments, from ministries and so on, and that we are also not taking money from big business also to run our projects. So our funding is based on private fundings, donations, by, in Germany, more than 600,000 people who donate small amounts or bigger amounts. And internationally, we have also support sometimes of foundations. So there's, for instance, ECF, European Climate Foundation in Europe, that supports some projects in Europe on climate protection or energy transition. We have also the Greenpeace Foundation, Environment Foundation in Germany, that now supports our project here in Ukraine. So we have some foundations, plus main funding from the offices, Greenpeace Germany, Central Eastern Europe, also with resources, with personnel. And then we are now looking also in external funding for projects, as I said, with the Solar for Ukraine project, so funding for solar panels and batteries, to the municipalities, to the hospitals. So we are just like the agent who connects funding and hospital here. Yeah, we are not receiving the money, but this is, of course, big support to the work what we are doing.
Oh, that's very cool. How many people, may I ask, work in the Ukrainian office?
So we opened this office about 1.5 years ago, at the time, which was really difficult, where many organizations disappeared, left Kiev. There was, from my perspective, a strong message, to those who are here. We opened it 1.5 years ago, and meanwhile we have 10 people working here, Ukrainians, mainly female, very young, very motivated, wonderful people, learning fast, I would say. And then we have another maybe 5 colleagues that support the Ukrainian team here in Kiev from outside, and partly as me, partly visit Kiev and the country and stay here for a few weeks, several times a year.
And is there something, so you frequently travel to Ukraine also during this last 4 years of not so pleasant environment, so to say. For you as an NGO operating in Ukraine, international NGO, is there something that is particularly difficult about working in this market at the moment or in general?
Yeah, I think there are many difficulties. Yeah, so the war environment for us is also really difficult on personal level, because it means a strict protocol of security. So, just an example: if there are increased air alerts, we need to go to shelters all the time. Yeah, and there was a time where almost every second night there were a few alerts, and I think if you stay longer here, you cannot always go to a shelter. Not everybody has the opportunity to do it, right? But we have to. I don't want to complain. It just means restrictions. There are also travel restrictions. So for me, within 3 years, I just made it once, really, to the city of Trostianets, because of the strict protocol we have to travel to these, let's say, risky regions, as Sumy is, one is. But also, of course, legal, administrative challenges between German bureaucracy and Ukrainian bureaucracy. Yeah, it's really challenging alone with the language sometimes. Yeah, also with missing expertise, also on community level, sometimes municipality level. They don't have the experts and the experience here. Yeah, but main thing for me, which is a challenge, is also the perception of outside of Ukraine about the situation here, about the opportunities, the huge opportunities to invest in renewables right now, because there are so many missing information that we really need to work on this perception, that Ukraine is, the war doesn't mean that everywhere everything is attacked, that solar panels are attacked, for instance. They are right now the solution, to invest in, and they are really hard to attack for the Russians compared to other energy technologies.
And the damage is less, I would say, if this is not a huge PV. We, of course, in the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency do a lot of work on promoting renewables and supporting international or Ukrainian investors in this sector. So I agree with you, the opportunity is there, it needs to be picked up, and a lot of work is also being done, supportive work by the government and the IFIs in terms of risk insurance and supporting these projects. Okay, so we touched a little bit on the history and your current activities. If we have a glimpse into the upcoming 2, 3, maybe 4 years, is there anything special you would like to share in terms of Greenpeace strategy for Ukraine for the coming future?
I think first learning is that we cannot really plan, because the situation is really hard to anticipate. We need to be flexible. I think that's also learning for the organization, who always wants perfectly strategy plans and control it somehow. And here we need a different approach, also different spirit. Other thing for us definitely is also learning to work with communities, also so in a broader way, of course, with women, with youth, with people here, That is the best investment. Also to work with municipalities, so local level, because most of them can act faster than national level, and they have the spirit and they have the interest and they are really active. They come to Europe and develop plans and start to take over their lives a bit,
But we are talking about, energy, climate sector, renewables, or reconstruction activities, or do you have any priority topics, or generally?
So for us, the energy sector is maybe the focus of our work. But of course, there are connected issues, biodiversity. So is also an area we want to look into. We have to look into because of the biodiversity global crisis here. Also, of course, if there will be, hopefully, as soon as possible, a kind of peace agreement. We don't know how it looks, but there might come bigger investment flows, to Ukraine, bigger investments, public investments, private investments. And they could be good or they could be wrong, from my perspective, And here we also want to become a watchdog. We have to monitor the situation, what it means for the nature and the biodiversity and the resources of this country in the future. This is something. We also look into the civil sector. We think anti-authorism, democracy are values that we share and that we want also to protect. And definitely one thing is that we want to be visible even stronger and collaborate more with our partner offices in Europe, because we think it's really important that we collaborate between Ukraine and European offices, and not only inside Greenpeace, also outside of Greenpeace.
Okay, super, thank you. And when you are talking about this biodiversity, environment, ecological issues, of course, there is a lot of discussion at the moment about environmental damages caused by Russian aggression. Is there anything that Greenpeace is doing in this area or thinks in this area about this part of a disaster?
Yes, of course, this is also for us relevant. So I think maybe the biggest example where all Ukrainians have been impacted somehow is Kakhovka Dam, where we also looked into the impacts, together with the organization Truth Hounds. Then we saw, of course, huge impacts on the marine environment with the Russian shadow fleet, oil spills, where we also monitored about the impacts on animals in the seas and in general. So we started some also local activities on the protection of mountain regions,
Yep. Renewables in the renewables in the Carpathians. The big winds
Carpathian,
scandal.
that's also even inside our team controversial, because on the one hand we agree there's enough other surface. We shouldn't maybe start the big wave of investments in windmills in those areas, mountain areas, without full legal procedures and permits and so on. On the other hand, we don't want to send the message that windmills are bad. That's not the case. We support windmills and renewables in general, and we want to help to share some experience from other countries where we helped with some guidance, where to go into mountains, what to protect in detail, to have some more guidance in this discussion. I think there we have a role, but that was maybe not the best start in this discussion about wind energy. Yeah.
In the Carpathians, this was quite a disastrous scandal at the moment, and of course it creates a wrong impression. I agree with you. It's like with small hydro, there was so much resilience on the local level, and for a good reason, because it was mistreated. The solutions were mistreated for a long time. Similar, like in wind, let's say unplanned and in a not environmentally friendly way, if the construction is not prepared and managed, this of course brings more damage than value. And here is very important. All these renewables in specific or special areas, or special biodiversity regions, they have a right to exist, but they have to be done properly with care, and doesn't necessarily have to be a project killer or investment killer, but a little bit more consideration doesn't hurt. So it would be great to also see more of Greenpeace activity and explanations and competence in these messages. Before this, really, we're splitting into two opposite teams that are starting to fight with each other. Right?
No, I don't see their risk, because we have a common understanding now in the team. But at the beginning, of course, it needs some conversation, right? And we have I'm coming from Germany. Yeah, in Germany, a lot of experience, and we already also made some conclusions out of this discussion. We need to talk more about the ownership of these renewable energy systems, of the energy system in general, So because people who live in that region, from our perspective, need also to benefit from them and not only be negative affected, maybe, because they might not like the windmills in the mountains because they don't look as nice as before the nature looked, or the landscape. So there is some resistance, and we had this not in my backyard movements in Germany a lot, And how was it changed a little bit? By this idea that on local level, communities, municipalities could become the owner of these windmills, in cooperatives, for instance, and people could invest and have shares here and economically benefit, but also in terms of jobs, So especially for rural areas where they sometimes struggle with economic prosperity, renewable energy is really a huge opportunity, And so if we bring together these interests, of maybe better planning, avoiding mistakes that have been done before, also in Germany, and people really benefiting and owning the energy system, that I think will make a huge difference.
Okay, renewables clear, but there is another big social debate uncovering. It's actually coming in and out for quite a few years now, for the new construction of nuclear power plants. Right, we had certain plans a few years ago, then the ministerial team changed, now we're back. So it's popping up over the last decade, back and forth, but now it seems is really becoming a topic, and preparation activities are ongoing in terms of new construction of nuclear power plant facilities. Where is Greenpeace standing in that process or position?
So our position, I think, as an organization is very clear here. Since decades, we are really pro-renewable development and against new investments in nuclear, because these are huge investments. It's very expensive, and especially there are a lot of problems connected to it. Security issues, as we have seen in Chernobyl, but also a long-term waste disposal. This is unsolved question. So many questions or many tasks and arguments not to go into new investments. The Ukrainian case, of course, has to be seen also in that way, that the current nuclear power plants are really important for the energy supply here. So we are not against, not acting against these existing reactors, but we are clearly against new investments. But in general, our focus here is on safety, as the situation is still really dangerous around Chernobyl. When we look into the damages after the Russian attack to the confinement, and also connected, of course, even more Zaporizhzhia and the hostage, Russian hostage there, and also the Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure, substations connected to nuclear risk. So this is the focus of our work. But we will, in the next months and years, also develop, I think, energy concepts where we show that there are alternatives. We don't need these investments anymore and can go faster, cheaper, and with more benefits on independence and security with renewable energies.
For Chernobyl, the sarcophagus that was damaged, I think it was Greenpeace recent statement that this has to be demounted fully. Because, when I look at these pictures, it looks like a not so big of a damage, right, compared to the entire size of the installation, but you have, I assume, investigated the site, and it is really so that it has to go off again and build new?
Yes, this is not the outcome only from our experts, who are nuclear experts for 30, 40 years, actually. It's the outcome of the scientists who constructed this confinement, Szyman, and he investigated for us and came up with this report we just released. And I think that's the same conclusions that is shared by Ukrainian government, that the confinement is in a very critical situation. It needs huge investments, and it's not clear if they can really stabilize the situation, because it was not a little hole only. There were huge damages inside, and we don't know if a collapse even of this whole structure could happen. So I don't want to be too negative, but this is clearly scientific evidence, and we need to take it serious. And I think the political debate already started, that we need a lot of money here to stabilize the situation.
No, it was enormous investment. I don't know, it was 300-400 million to construct this protection, or more, maybe.
Yeah, probably billions.
Billions.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember it was a huge international funding package and quite a few years of constructing that thing, but incredible.
Yeah, just the US I think announced 100 million support here, and other countries also discuss support. So in total, investments are probably over $1 billion.
In your work with Ukrainian communities, how are they currently perceiving the reconstruction efforts and integration of renewables? And do you see a lot of enthusiasm? Is there still skepticism? Because I have been observing this market for more than 10 years. There was for a very long time a lot of skepticism around renewables. Do you still meet it on occasion, or is this completely gone?
It's not completely gone. It's still there, of course. But I see actually pretty fast changes there. I think there are a few drivers of this change, yeah. So the old system, yeah, the old centralized system in the war collapsed, yeah. So on local level, the mayors, for instance, cannot trust anymore in a reliable supply for their people, yeah. So, and they also understood, I think, that this crisis situation opens also opportunities to act on local level, to look for maybe international support, because the national government cannot provide immediate support for all the municipalities, yeah. There's also, of course, the situation that they look at each other. They look at the pioneers, on those who do the demonstration projects and bring in money from outside, from donors from outside, to work on greener reconstruction concepts, for instance, on renewable energy supply. So they see that it's possible to change the situation on a specific level, at least. So yeah, the crisis is a driver, but also kind of competition between the mayors, and their people are in a critical situation. So they need to change something, yeah, and many of them really want to do it. So yeah, I see a lot of spirit, yeah, but of course it's not the same with any municipality.
Do you see anything that could go dramatically wrong in the reconstruction sector?
Yes, that's maybe the situation, what I try to describe, when bigger investments come in a very short period of time, and these investments are driven by interests and values we are not sharing, like, let's say, the big oligarchs, the big dictators, industry, like the big Trumps, yeah, fossil fuel investments and so on. I understand that we need investments in general, and we need them as soon as possible. For instance, in the energy sector, but also in other sectors. But there is the risk of logins and false, let's say, pathways when it comes, for instance, to fossil fuels, to gas, to nuclear, and so on, because this development would contradict long-term goals, which also Ukraine probably will share in a few years when they are part of the European Union, what I really expect and hope. And Europe has, or the European Union, to be precise, has these goals of a Green Deal, of becoming more independent of fossil fuels and nuclear as well, still, and going towards, in the energy sector, renewable energy, also taking into account climate protection, of course. So this is a bit, from my perspective, from our perspective, a big risk that the investment flows are coming into false directions and false technologies. The old technologies are not the new ones.
What is your personal motivation to work in Ukraine right now? Why did you join Greenpeace?
Yes, that's of course a good question, always, because might also change over years. But actually, yeah, so to work for Greenpeace, I would say there was a decision partly academically when I, at the university, better understood about the threats of climate crisis and climate change, and also injustice connected to that those who are not responsible suffer as the first and the most. And then when I came to Greenpeace, I understood what activism means. When I joined the anti-nuclear movement in Germany, which was really inspiring to see so many people trying to do something with their hands, with their body, with protests and so on. Yeah, and I'm now 20 years at Greenpeace, and for me in the last years it was more and more important to share maybe my experience of the years in other countries where maybe the development is not that far as it is already in Germany, with, for instance, 60% share of renewables in the electricity sector, which is amazing. When I started to work in this sector, we had 5%, around 2000, yeah.
So 26 years, yeah?
Yes. Huge success, but also a lot of challenges, fights, work. This led to experiences. And so I really like the international context. And then on the personal level, it was just that I have been before in Ukraine. I understand and know a little bit the country and the city of Kiev, and then after full-scale invasion, let's say similar people who I worked with before. So after Fukushima nuclear disaster, so I mentioned my nuclear colleagues, for instance, yeah, and some other colleagues at Greenpeace Germany who have a stronger relationship to the work here in this country, and also on personal level. So it somehow matched at that time. And of course, the Russian full-scale invasion, that was strong motivation, yeah, to support this country in a very difficult time, and to support it also because the future of the country is also connected strongly to the future of Europe.
Well, as we are approaching the end of our session today, I have, I think, two more maybe general strategic questions. So if we would have to summarize, and you could identify, let's say, 3 priorities that both Ukraine should prioritize and support and move forward, hopefully with the support of international community, what should be these top 3 things, focus areas?
Yeah, I think preparation and support for the next winter. And directly to...
Next winter is very soon. I'm not sure how much we can achieve there.
Yeah, so on energy supply, on practical solutions, everything, yeah. To also municipalities, for households. Really important, yeah. More donations, whatever, from outside. Second, I think really more efforts on sanctions. EU sanctions, general sanctions against Russian oil, nuclear investments and connections, oil and gas, yeah, really important because it fuels the war, Putin's war, Russia's war. And third, maybe, more efforts on collaboration to end this aggression, to make peace and victory for this country possible.
And if there would be one thing you would want our audience to take out of today's conversation, what would be?
It would be to understand that even after 4 years of this terrible war, there are people outside who support, who still follow, who are in solidarity, who donate. So you're not alone, yeah? You're not alone here.
Thank you, Andree. Thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you for your support and for being with us today. Today, our guest was Andree Böhling, energy expert in Greenpeace. Your host, Olena Rybak, board member of the European-Ukrainian Energy Agency. And our topic today was From Chernobyl to Reconstruction, Greenpeace in Ukraine. Stay tuned for new sessions, and we see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.